What's up, guys? We're back and we are looking at synthetic division today. So last time we were looking at long division. Synthetic division is quite a bit shorter and faster, so I think everybody will like that. So let's get to it. It's a pretty short lesson. All right, so basically synthetic division is a shorthand or shortcut method of polynomial division, in the special case only if you're dividing by a linear factor. And it doesn't work if the factor you're dividing by is not linear, meaning you're only going to have like an x minus 1. That would be a linear term. Something like x squared minus 1, that's not linear because you have the exponent of 2. So the synthetic division only works if it's a linear term that you're dividing by. So just keep that in mind. All right, so you guys have in front of you these steps. I mean, I wrote them out for you so that you could have them and reference them. I think you'll find that they're a little more wordy than the actual process. The process is pretty simple and pretty fast, but basically, let's go through these really quickly. You can obviously pause, rewind, uh, read them to yourself as you need to. So step one, we want to set the problem up first. Set the denominator equal to 0 to find the number to put in the division box. Next, make sure the numerator is written in descending order. If any terms are missing, you must use a 0 to fill in the missing term. Finally, list only the coefficient in the division problem. All right, the next thing we want to do is, once the problem is set up correctly, we want to bring the leading coefficient, or the first number, straight down. Third step is we're going to multiply the number in the division box with the number you brought down and put the result in the next column. Step 4, we're going to add the two numbers together and write the result in the bottom of the row. Step 5, we're going to repeat steps 3 and 4 until we reach the end of the problem. And then finally, when we get down to step number 6, we're going to write the final answer. And our final answer is going to be made up of the numbers in the bottom row, with the last number being the remainder, and the remainder must be written as a fraction. The variables, or x's, if we have x as our variable, start off 1 power less than the original denominator and go down with each term. Now, all of this probably sounds like just a bunch of talk to you, probably doesn't really mean a whole lot, and that's okay, because we're going to do some practice problems, and I think you'll find that, again, the steps are maybe a lot of words, and it's not as difficult as all that reading would suggest. All right, so first thing we have to check for is obviously make sure we're dividing by a linear term. So we have our polynomial 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 3x plus 7 divided by, because a fraction is a division problem, x minus 1. Well, x minus 1, x is to the power of 1, so this is a linear term. So first step, we take that x minus 2, I said 1, it's x minus 2, x minus 2 and set it equal to 0 and figure out what x is. So if I get x by itself, I would add 2 to both sides, so x equals 2. All right, so next thing you're going to do is you're going to take that 2 and you're going to set up kind of like a downward division here. And then we're going to take everything from the numerator and we're going to plug it into our box. And we're only going to use the numbers in front of our variables. And they have to be in descending order. So that's that step that said make sure they're in order. So we have x cubed, x squared, x to the first, and then we have a constant. So that has to be in descending order. So if it's not in descending order, then you have to rearrange it so that it is. So this one happens to be in descending order. So I'm only going to use the coefficient. So I have 2, I have negative 5, I have positive 3, and I have positive 7. So that's what I'm going to use. So this is the setup. Next thing you're going to do, take that first number and bring it straight down. So I'm going to bring my 2, bring it straight down. Then what you do is you take this number here, you multiply it by this guy here. So 2 times 2 is 4. You're going to put that 4 in the next spot here. Then you add these two numbers. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. And then you repeat that process. I'm going to multiply this number times this number. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Then I repeat and add this number, or these two numbers. So 3 plus negative 2 is positive 1. And then I multiply 1 times 2, gives me 2. And then I add, gives me 9. All right, so you've officially divided your polynomial by your linear term. So we have a remainder. This last number is the remainder. This is going to be our new polynomial. So how does that look? Well, I have 2x. The step that said your answer is 1 less than the leading coefficient or the leading power. So it started off with the cubed, so my answer is going to start off with the squared. So 2x squared minus 1x, or just 1 because we don't have to write the 1, plus 1, and then my remainder is going to be plus 9 over whatever was in the denominator, x minus 2. And that is synthetic division. So it's considerably probably faster than long division, but there's that stipulation that it only works if it's a linear term. All right, let's go on to number 2. So first step, take what's in the denominator, set it equal to 0, and get x by itself. So we get x equals negative 3. Okay, so let's set up our problem. I've got negative 3, and then I've got my box, and I'm going to write my coefficients. They have to be in order. So I have 3, 2. Notice you don't have an x term. We're going to substitute a 0 for that because we have to have it when we're doing our division. So when I go to write this, I'm going to have 2, I have 5, and because there's no x term, I'm going to fill in with a 0, and then I'll have my constant for 9. That's important. This won't work if you forget to do the holding that place. So if it's missing something, you just put a 0 in place of it, and then you can continue on with your synthetic division. All right, so first thing, bring down the 2, multiply. 3 times negative 2 is, or 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Add these two together, we get negative 1. And then multiply negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. Add these two is 3. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. 9 plus negative 9 is 0. So this means we have a remainder of 0. So my answer is going to be 2x. And I started off with a cubed. So my answer is going to start off with the squared because it's 1 less than what we started with. Minus x plus 3. Since I don't have a remainder, I don't need to write 0 over x plus 3. I can just write my answer. So there is your answer to this problem. All right, we've got, I think, 2 more to go. Yeah, 2 more problems. Same process. So first step, x plus 2 equals 0. Get x by itself, so we get x equals negative 2. All right, now negative 2 is going to go on the outside of my box, and then I'm going to fill in my coefficients. All right, so I'm starting off with a 1, and then I don't have a squared term or an x term, so I'm going to fill it in with 0 and 0, and then 5 is my constant. And then I just go and do my synthetic division. Drop this guy down, multiply, and then add. And then repeat the process. Multiply, and then add. Multiply, and add. All right, then you can write your final answer. So I would have x squared, because we started off with a cube, and then minus 2x plus 4 minus 3 over x plus 2. So we've got a remainder of 3, or negative 3. That last number is always your remainder. If it's a 0, then it means you don't have a remainder. But if you do, you write that over what you were dividing by. And this is just bothering me, so I need to make that look a little nicer. So x plus 2. All right, last problem that we're going to look at. So x minus 2 equals 0. Get x by itself, x equals 2. So we have 2. And then in my box, I'm going to have 2. I don't have an x squared term, so I'm going to hold that place with 0. Then I have -5 and 7. And then I can do my process. So bring down my 2, multiply, add, and then multiply, add, multiply, and then add. Oops, that's a -7. Make sure you don't forget that, the sign in front of your numbers. So that should be a -7, not a +7. And then add, we get -1. All right, then I can write my answer. So I have 2x, and it would be squared because I started with the cubed, plus 4x plus 3 minus 1 over what I divided by, x minus 2. And voila, you are finished. All right, so I'm hoping that you guys found it pretty easy to do synthetic division. Just a couple reminders. Again, it only works if it's a linear term, so you can't divide by an x squared minus 2. It has to be x minus 2, or the x has to be the power of 1. Other than that, write down questions that you have, bring them in the class. We'll go over it, talk about it. Yeah, so that's all I got. Peace, people.